So good afternoon, everyone. Here it is on the first day of our new year, and we're so hopeful for a beautiful future together. Today is Creating Sacred Intentions with Rabbi Anson Laytner, Pastor Dave Brown, and Imam Jamal Rahman. And this is a tradition we have offered on New Year's Day at Interfaith Community Sanctuary for many years. And our intentions hope to provide opportunities for all of us to enliven our future and move toward a reality of a more conscious and engaged relationship with ourselves, with one another, and with the world. And we do this as compassionate, caring human beings. So I'll be introducing our spiritual guides today with short reading from their bios. And following that, we will go directly into the program. I'm first going to introduce Rabbi Anson Laytner, who is a happily retired rabbi who lives in Seattle and has a career in nonprofit and academic settings focused on fostering positive interfaith and interethnic relations for the betterment of the community. He is the past president of the Sino-Judaic Institute and editor of its journal Points East. He is also past president of Northwest Interfaith and has been active in local interfaith affairs. He is a graduate of York University in Toronto, Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati, and Seattle University. He is author of Arguing with God, co-author of The Animals Lawsuit Against Humanity, and co-editor of The Chinese Jews of Kaifeng, and author of The Mystery of Suffering and the Meaning of God. Pastor Dave Brown is a former pastor of Emmanuel Presbyterian Church in Tacoma, Washington. He served as staff to the NCCC Committee on Public Education and Literacy. Reverend Brown was on the task force that wrote Loving Our Neighbors, Equity and Quality in Public Education, a social witness policy document approved by the 219th General Assembly. He is also known nationally in the blues music community for Emmanuel's Blues Vespers. Dave edits a monthly poetry column, Setting the Inner Compass for the Presbyterian Church's online magazine, Justice Abound. This year, he has had his own poems published by the Echoes of Panhala Facebook page. A writer, Pastor Dave contributes op-eds to the Seattle Times and Tacoma News Tribune. He leads regular spiritual journeys to the island of Iona, Scotland. Pastor Dave Brown is a member of the Pacific Northwest Interfaith Amigos with Rabbi Ted Falcon and Imam Jamal Rahman. And Imam Jamal Rahman is co-founder and Muslim Sufi minister at Interfaith Community Sanctuary here in Seattle. And he is adjunct faculty at Seattle University. Jamal has a passion for interfaith work and travels often, teaching classes, workshops, and retreats locally, nationally, and internationally. His books include Spiritual Gems of Islam, The Fragrance of Faith, Sacred Laughter of the Sufis. And so now we begin our creating sacred intentions on this first day of the new year. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Well, we have all been through a lot this year, and I would like to start with a traditional Jewish blessing that welcomes thanks God for enabling us to come to this season. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Yah, our God, Spirit of the universe, who has given us life and sustained us and enabled us to reach this time. Amen. So for my centering on intention, I'd like to introduce you to a ritual called Tashlich. It's a ritual that's carried out on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Its name comes from the verb shalach, which means to cast out. And our task in the new year, whether it's the Jewish New Year or the secular New Year, is to cast out transgressions and to seek greater clarity of purpose in the year ahead. And this ritual that Jews do helps us visualize this task. We go to a flowing body of water, such as a river, a stream, a lake, or an ocean, and we cast breadcrumbs into the water while reciting a number of verses from the prophets Ezekiel, Micah, and Isaiah, including the following. Cast off all your transgressions from yourselves and make for yourselves a new heart and a new spirit. Who is a God like you? You who does not cling to anger, but desires only kindness. You who acts mercifully, subduing the effects of our transgressions, casting to the ocean waters all our wrongs. And then we would throw the breadcrumbs into the water and watch our sins vanish. So I'd like to try a variation of this custom with you this afternoon. You probably don't have a pile of breadcrumbs handy, but assuming you have a pocket, I'd like you to reach into it and pull out some of the lint that's down in the very corner. So I'm going to reach into my pocket, pull out some lint. Here's my lint. I've got a lot of sins. And while you hold onto your lint, consider what behaviors you'd like to change in yourself in the coming year, what actions you regret having done, or words you are sorry for having uttered, or even thoughts for which you are remorseful. So let's take a few moments to reflect on this. You can play with your lint. You can sit and contemplate. If you're journaling, feel free to write down things that you have done that you regret, words that you are sorry for having uttered, or even thoughts for which you are remorseful. And I'll call us back together again in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so if you have your piece of lint, just pull off some of it, pull it apart, and blow it away, like that. Or if you've written stuff down, cross it out. Cast off everything that you want to get rid of. Cast it all off. But you know, all this lint is just external stuff. If you want real change, you need to do interior work. So let me introduce you, if you're not already familiar with it, to the Taoist concept of Wu Wei, which means non-action. If you want real change, don't do anything. Just be. No past regrets, no future anxieties, just being in the present. Try to touch the person you are behind, underneath all the trappings of deeds and words and thoughts of ego. So I'd like to close this session in silence, practicing Wu Wei, being present, just as God is being present. Amen.
Thank you, Anson, for beginning this time together. Thank you for inviting us into those spaces of silence as well. This is the time in the service where we think specifically about our sacred intentions for the new year and think of the concrete ways we might make those intentions real. Before doing that, I want to begin with a poem and a prayer. I've read the poem Wild Geese by Mary Oliver at other services at the Interfaith Community Sanctuary and at previous services of Sacred Commitment, though I didn't read it last year. The poem, I believe, is about the Christian teaching of grace. Being accepted, to echo Anson's themes, being accepted not for what we do, but because we are. No conditions. Listen to the poem, Wild Geese. Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of rain are moving across the landscape, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Mary Oliver's Wild Geese. As we commit to our sacred intentions for this new calendar year, my deep hope is that all of us will have a sense of our place in the family of things, that we belong, that we have a home here. My prayer is from the Celtic tradition. If prayer is not part of your spirituality, I invite you to meditate on these words. If you pray, I invite you to pray with me. O God of new beginnings, who brings light out of night's darkness and fresh green out of hard winter earth, there is barren land between us as people and nations this day. There are empty stretches of soul within us. Give us eyes to see new dawnings of promise. Give us ears to hear fresh soundings of birth. The African-American theologian and writer Howard Thurman once wrote, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive." Now, as I invite you to make your sacred intention, I invite you to ponder your way of being in the next year that will make you, in Thurman's words, come alive. Making a commitment like this is at its best an integrated act, an act of heart, mind, and soul. Committing to an intention for the new year is a private act, and it could be a public act. Before reflecting on our intentions and committing to them, I want to say that we do this knowing that there will be times when we stray from what our best intention is for ourselves, from who we want to be. And as the new year unfolds, like the last year unfolded, we may find our sacred intention that we feel this January 1st changing, evolving. I invite you to honor that part of the journey and to be gentle. Be gentle with yourself. We change. Our sacred intention changes. Committing to intentions means committing to listening to what life teaches. So I'm going to invite you to ponder in silence 3 questions. First, to meditate on the question of what is your intention for the coming year? Not meaning what do you want to do, but who do you want to be? Is your spiritual intention to cultivate more patience, more courage, to be more loving, to listen, to be open to creativity? So my first question as you ponder what you intend for your deepest being this coming year is this. It is now January 1st, 2022. You are pleased and proud of how you moved through the past year, of how your inner life unfolded. What do you see? What happened? I invite you to silence. The second question is this. As the year unfolds, how will you be able to remember the commitment you made to a sacred intention today? Is there someone you need or want to share your spiritual intention with to help it to stay mindful to you? Do you need to write it down somewhere so you can visit it? Do you have a soul friend who can be on the journey with you? There's so much distraction. How will you help yourself remember what you want to be about in the next year, what you're pondering today? For me, I know that I will share my sacred intention with my partner, Anne, and ask her to help me be mindful of what I'm pondering today. What will you do? I invite you into space to consider that. One final meditation. What will be the initial steps you can take to honor your spiritual intention for the new year? How will you begin to make your intention real, flesh? I invite you to silence. I close with a poem by the Buddhist poet Mark Nepo and a prayer. Listen, the myth of urgency. Everyone wants you to quietly be Atlas, to shoulder it all. Even the voice in your head insists you're behind. But I've seen the light in you. The one the God's finger while we sleep. I've seen the blossom open in your heart, no matter what remains to be done. There are never enough hours to satisfy the minions of want. So close your eyes and lean into the oneness that asks nothing of you. When the calls stack, answer to no one, though you receive them all. And then this ending, just open your beautiful hands, born with nothing in them. You have never been more complete than in this incomplete moment. The Myth of Urgency by Mark Nepo. My prayer is that the God of new beginnings will give us eyes to see new dawnings of promise and ears to hear fresh soundings of birth. Many blessings. Much love. Brother Jamal.
Thank you so much, Brother Dave, and also Brother Anson. So maybe just a few more seconds of silence to receive the insights and wisdom of Rabbi Anson, Pastor Dave, and allow it, as all the great mystics say, to perfume our hearts. Just a few more moments of silence. Thank you. I'd like to start by doing a couple of chants. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. This is the invocation which opens virtually all of the 114 chapters of the Quran. In the name of God, who is boundlessly compassionate, infinitely merciful. Two versions. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Bismillah, Bismillah, Ir-Rahman, Ir-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah. So my dear friends, I want to start by saying that I feel so privileged that in the work I do, I meet a lot of people, these days via Zoom, and each time I do, I sincerely and humbly request them for some wisdom of what they're feeling, how they're feeling, and any silver linings that we can bring forward as time progresses. So I've made a note of all the different points that they have told me, and I'd like to go over them the wisdom I've heard and just reflect on that and allow that to resonate within. The very first one is, may we, as we are in this new year, give ourselves permission to really honor and feel all those difficult feelings, our pain, our anguish, our sadness. May we embrace them with the tenderness of our soul. May we, as Carl Jung said, may we kiss them so that the dragons and demons within us, they become transformed into a prince or princess. You know, Khalil Gibran said, the more that sorrow carves into your being, the more that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy it can contain. But of course, as the Sufi mystics remind us, don't run towards pain and suffering. Don't run towards pain and suffering. Just don't run away from them. That's why all the mystics say, if you have tears, please be open to weeping. You know, I love two pieces of poetry. One is from Bulle Shah, a very famous mystic in South Asia, who says, tears are colorless, thank God. Tears are colorless, thank God. Otherwise, my pillow would betray the secrets of my heart. Tears are colorless, thank God. Otherwise, my pillow would betray the secrets of my heart. And then Rumi, the 13th century sage, says, oh, please weep, weep like the water wheel, so sweet herbs may grow in the courtyard of your soul. You know, I'm reminded of this tragic insight that when the Vietnam vets came back from Vietnam, the thinking at that time was, you know, the pain you're suffering, the anguish you're feeling, put it behind you, look forward. Don't delve into that. And guess what happened? More Vietnam vets have committed suicide than the number of Vietnam vets who died in Vietnam. No, let us, through so many spiritual techniques, we call it in Sufism, sacred holding, honor those feelings. Bring it into us. Heal those wounds. That is how you go beyond that. That is how anger becomes transformed into an inner enthusiasm, fear into greater mindfulness, sadness into greater empathy. You see, just to tell someone, I forgive you, is powerful. But it is actually counterproductive if I don't simultaneously do the work of acknowledging, owning, healing, integrating the pain, the wound within me. So just be with that. May I own my sadness, my difficult feelings, so I may go beyond that, have it become transformed. Just be with it for a few moments. Okay, the second point that friends are telling me, may we realize that time is really precious. It's easy to forget that. You know, I want to repeat that mullah story, that fictional mullah through whom many profound truths are conveyed from the literature of Islamic spirituality. Some of you will know this by heart. I've said it so often. The mullah is in London Museum, and the guide, who is a very learned professor, says this artifact is like 5,000 years old. Mullah says, excuse me, is 5,004 years old. The guide is annoyed, doesn't say anything. The guide moves on. This is about 10,000 years old. Excuse me, is 10,004 years old. And now the guide is quite annoyed. He says, sir, you have a beard, you have a turban. I know you come from the mysterious East, but how can you be so laser precise about these dates? Simple, said the mullah. Simple. I was here 4 years ago. At that time, you mentioned those dates. So many levels of meaning. One is, it's later than you think. So that's about time. Regarding priorities, also the Islamic mystics say, make a discernment between form and essence. Rather than talk, let me give you two examples. I saw a TEDx of a Bangladeshi corporate executive who was doing very well, who was excited about climbing the corporate ladder. And he happened to visit Bangladesh, and he was on to a very, he was going to a meeting, very important meeting. On the way, a very sad, very poor and very unwell beggar asked him for some help. And he was late for his meeting, or he would become late. He just walked past, ignored him. But then that night he pondered about it, if I remember the story. And then he was struck by an insight that he's been climbing the wrong ladder. That's the wrong ladder of success. So he kept his job. He has a foundation now, but he uses that money to help the marginalized. Okay, another story, which I remember all the time, but sadly I've forgotten the name of this very well-known Nobel Prize winner, achieved great success. And then he got a letter from a very beautiful young girl who said, wow, I really love your success, your achievements. I want to be just like you. And the Nobel Prize winner, he wrote a letter back saying, I beg you, please do not be like me. I have, of course, earned the Nobel Prize, but in the process, I have neglected my wife. I have neglected my children. I have neglected my health. I am divorced. My children are estranged. I'm in poor health. I am lonely. All I really wanted was some love, I've realized. That's all I wanted. So just be with that. What is it I really want? Can I understand the difference between form and essence? I'm told, I don't know if it's that graveyard, there are many graveyards of this fictional mullah that I talked about. And if you enter his gravesite, I'm told there's a huge forbidding door with all kinds of locks and chains all around it, but there are no walls. And there's a teaching there. And there's an inscription by Rumi, and I'm paraphrasing it, where Rumi says, no matter how much money you accumulate, how many titles you win, the thief will come from the unguarded side. The thief will come from the unguarded side. Therefore, focus, invest, concentrate on that which can never be stolen. Love, compassion, justice, service, capacity to forgive. Just be with that. Third one, everyone has told me we have realized the critical need for self-care. We have a body. May I take care of my body? It's a temple of my soul. What am I doing to take care of my physical body? I have thoughts. And all the great masters have said, I'm going to quote the Buddha here because I love his statement. The Buddha says, we are what we think. Everything that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make our world. Speak and act with pure thoughts, and happiness follows you, like the wheel follows the oxen cart. Speak and act with impure thoughts, and sorrow follows you, like your shadow follows you. So any technique about really becoming aware of your thoughts. In our classes, in our programs, we always talk about this technique called neti. If you get a negative thought and you allow it to fester, it grows into a negative imaginary scenario. Monstrous circumstances, you're doing this out of anger, you are taking revenge. And if you allow that to fester, it becomes reality, because for two reasons. One is the subconscious does not differentiate between real and imagined. And number two, everything is interconnected. What we call the real realm or the imaginary realm, they're interconnected. So in the technique, we talk about the moment you become aware of negative imaginary scenarios, you immediately do a spiritual intervention. Delete. I mean, if you're cyber savvy, cancel. The Hindus and Buddhists say, neti, not this, not that, not real. The Muslims say, tawbah, oh God, I beg forgiveness for this negative thought. Take it away. Okay, the third one is purifying the heart. May I always continue to purify my heart. I just love that metaphor that says that if your key is crooked, it will not fit the lock of the door of happiness. The door of happiness will not open. If your key is crooked, it will not fit the lock of the door of happiness. It will not open. Okay, my friends, I'm looking at my notes here and I'm looking at my time on the left side. I'm realizing, oh my God, I don't want to overdo it. That's another insight, by the way, by the great mystics. Don't overdo it. And the wonderful example is if you're drawing a snake, if you're overdoing it, you end up by drawing legs on the snake. And I love the other insight. Jamal, be flexible. I haven't even gone through 1/3 of this. Be flexible. My favorite saying is, be blessed are the flexible, for they will never be bent out of shape. Okay, so I'll quickly go over one-liners about the different points. Is also, please engage in righteous deeds. Be of service, be a lamp, a lifeboat, or ladder to others. The great mystics say, Jamal, on the day of liberation, when you die, you'll have to leave your wealth, your titles at your palace, your friends, loving friends, family, loving family can accompany you only up to the grave. But beyond that, what propels you forward is a record of good deeds. What are your good deeds? It doesn't have to be grand. Prophet Muhammad said, do good deeds according to your capacity. God never tires of doing good deeds. No, God never tires of giving rewards unless you tire of doing good deeds. God never tires of giving rewards unless you tire of doing good deeds. The good deeds most loved by God are the ones you do regularly. The good deeds most loved by God are the ones you do regularly, no matter how small they are. Just be with that for a few seconds. I'll just make 2 more points, I'll finish. What are some good spiritual practices? See, from my friends I've heard, keep the spiritual practices simple. I always tell this story of this Bedouin who went to the Prophet Muhammad and said, "Oh, sweet Muhammad, the legislation of the faith has become too complicated for me. Just give me one simple practice." And the Prophet Muhammad said, "Of course." He said, "Keep your tongue forever moistened with the name of Allah." That's it. Keep your tongue forever moistened with the name of Allah. The practice I'm going to suggest to you is a popular one I'm finding, is where you sacralize, you make sacred any ordinary moment. These days we are washing our hands all the time. Make it a prayer, sacralize it, make it sacred. As I wash my hands, oh God, I am purifying my impurities. Or as you take a shower. As I put this coat on today, I said, oh God, I'm putting the mantle of divine protection on me. What happens if I take it off? Oh God, may this be the act of peeling off layers of my ego. Driving a car, oh God, please steer me in the right direction. Can you think of creative ways? This is a beautiful practice of sacralizing ordinary, mundane moments of your life. Okay, last one. May I find opportunities to smile and laugh a lot. You know, that 14th century sage Hafiz says, what is this love and laughter bubbling up from within me? He says, listen to my answer. It's the sound of a soul waking up. So I want to end with this letter. This one of our friends, some of you know him, I won't mention his name because I don't have his permission, but it's a public letter. He wrote a letter about the end of the old year, and it's quite witty. It's kind of funny. He says, 2020 was a write-off year. Therefore, keeping with American tradition, we are asking God for a refund. Our hope is that, inshallah, meaning if God wills, we will spend less time on the internet and more time with real people in 2021. We were planning to quit all our bad habits for 2021, but then we realized nobody likes a quitter. Sorry for all our annoying actions in 2020. Please forgive us and give us a chance to do the same in the coming year. So humor is very beautiful. You know, at our age, all the great mystics say we are so scared we shall someday go into non-existence. We shall die. Here I am so scared I shall go into non-existence. But Rumi says, if the truth be known, non-existence is trembling in fear. It might be given human shape. And when you go over to the other side, say the mystics, when you go over to the other side and look back at your life, at all your dramas and melodramas, you will laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. The mystics say, why wait? Why don't you laugh right now? So just be with that for a few moments as I end this. Just be in silence for a few seconds. And now I'll invite my colleague, the Associate Minister, Sally Joe, to say, Rabbi Anson, did you want to start with a blessing? Then Brother Dave, then myself.
Sure. So I would like to leave you with the concluding prayer of a rabbi in the Talmud whose name was Rav. And I think it's a wonderful prayer to start the new year with. May it be your will, Yah our God, to grant us long life, a life of peace, a life of good, a life of blessing, a life of prosperity, a life of health, a life guided by the fear of sin, a life lived without shame, a life rich and honorable, a life filled with the love of your teaching and the awe of heaven, a life in which all the desires of our hearts shall be fulfilled for good. Amen.
Thank you, Anson, and thank you to Karen and to Sally Joe for the work that they've done in putting this together once more. I look forward to hopefully sometime in mid-spring when we bring Blues Vespers back to the Interfaith Community Sanctuary in a physical way. My blessing is in two parts. First is a poem by Denise Levertov. Denise grew up in a non-spiritual context, and later in her life, coincidentally, most fully when she lived in Seattle, she found a depth of spirituality. And in the midst of that time, she wrote this poem called The Avowal. The word avowal means an open declaration or acknowledgement. It's one of my favorite poems and a blessing. As swimmers dare to lie face to the sky and water bears them. As hawks rest upon air and air sustains them. So would I, so would we learn to attain free fall and float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all surrounding grace. Brothers and sisters, life is short. We do not have that long to gladden the paths of those we travel this way with. So be quick to love and make haste to be kind. Amen.
Amen, brother. A short Quranic recitation and a blessing. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم الصراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. And the blessing. May the blessings of God rest upon you. May God's peace abide with you. May God's presence illuminate your heart now and forevermore. My dear friends, your presence has been a blessing. From our heart, we thank you profusely. Sally Jo,